I've been defending child pornography charges and dealing with these investigations in the Greater Toronto Area and throughout Ontario for well over 20 years. If you or someone you care about is facing such charges here in Ontario, there are important decisions to make and a battle ahead. And as with any battle, you have to understand what's at stake, and here's what's at stake. Number one, jail. If you're being sentenced today, it being March 2018, there are minimum jail terms that apply. And the minimums are either 6 months or 12 months in jail. The minimum 6 months applies if and only if the Crown is proceeding by summary conviction and you are being sentenced on a simple access and or simple possession. So, if the Crown is proceeding by indictment on any child pornography charge, the minimum is 12 months. If you are being sentenced for making child pornography, importing child pornography, distributing child pornography, or making available child pornography, regardless of how the Crown proceeds, the minimum is 12 months. And keep in mind, these are the minimum jail terms that the judge must impose by law. Your actual jail will depend upon all the circumstances of the offense and your circumstances as an offender. And importantly, three things. Number one, the number of images, movies, and or writings that fall within the definition of child pornography. 2, the ages of the victims, and 3, the nature of the abuse depicted. Second consequence, probation. Very significant consequence following your sentencing. Probation is for a maximum of 36 months. Typically it's imposed for 18 to 36 months and really involves three things. Number one, it involves you reporting to a probation officer to supervise you, to make sure that you keep the peace and be of good behavior, and that you follow all the conditions of your probation order, which fall into 2 categories. You will be obligated to do certain things. So for example, you will be obligated to attend for assessment, treatment, and or counseling as directed by your probation officer. You can be prohibited from doing things. So for example, you may be prohibited from accessing the internet except under conditions outlined by the judge and most likely supervised directly or indirectly by your probation officer. So those are the three things. You have to report, there's going to be obligations, and there's going to be prohibitions. Thirdly, the sex offender registries, and it's plural because here in Ontario we have 2. We have the federal registry, which is the SWARA, which is for 10 years, 20 years, or life. And then we have Ontario's Christopher's Law, which is for 10 years or for life. And the term will depend upon the type of charges and the number of charges. Remember as well that the registry obligations as we see them today may change over time. So depending upon how old you are today, it may be very difficult to assess the impact of that today, what a registry obligation will look like 10 years from now, 20 years from now, or 30 years from now as those regulations change with the political winds. Next, the 161 order, very significant impact. This is an order that can be for up to life. It's not a mandatory order. I want you to see the notes below where I have copied down there the entire Section 161 order, but keep in mind that under Section 161 you can be banned for up to life from accessing the internet except under conditions outlined by the judge. You can be banned for up to life from having contact or communication with any children under 16, including your own children. You can be banned from up to life from accessing a public park or a public swimming area, and that would include the Toronto X. It would also include a private condominium swimming pool. So a very significant order, and that could impose liberty restrictions upon you long after you're out of jail and your probation's expired. So it's something you have to keep in mind as you make decisions. Lastly, we have what I call a basket here of extrajudicial consequences. Some of these you're already feeling, so you're no doubt feeling the stigma of being charged. That will obviously continue if you're convicted, and there's no pardons or record suspensions for these types of offenses, so that's a stigma that will be there for a lifetime. There can be an impact upon your employment. There can be an impact upon your professional standing. So for example, if you are a teacher, doctor, engineer, or a member of any professional organization, that organization may commence proceedings against you because of the conviction. Your travel may be affected, especially if you travel to the U.S. You may be banned. And there could be an impact in terms of the local child protection authority. So for example, 10 years from now, long after the jail and probation are over, if your local child protection authorities learn that you're living in a residence where there are children, your own children or someone else's children, then they can step in and attempt to oppose measures that they consider necessary to keep those children safe. And in a worst case scenario, they can threaten to apprehend those children. Again, it's issues that you have to deal with in an extrajudicial manner, perhaps for the rest of your life, because it is a lifetime conviction. If you want more information, please come visit me, craigpenney.com, or just call me.